really interesting. Welcome to our next panel where we're going to redefine connections. I'm going to ask my guests to join me, and I'm going to perch on the end, and we'll get started. So welcome, come on. I can sit on the end. Cool, and it is the Sunday Bloody Mary brunch, so I bet you won't get many panels where you actually get to have a Bloody Mary if you want one. So this could get interesting, especially if I spill it over my white trousers. Great. Well, look, the whole point of this whole 3-day conference is staying human in the digital world. In the panel that Tina was running, there was a really interesting question where one of the gentlemen said, why aren't we talking about experiential? Quite an interesting point, especially given my background is experiential. But the whole reason we've kind of put these 3 days together is, what does brand experience mean nowadays? It used to mean an in real life experience. I was just talking to you this morning about brand experience from a brand point of view is every single touch point there is throughout the whole chain of things. But also for me, the whole concept of marketing and actually now the demands of really needing to engage with your audiences means like it covers a broad spectrum. So I'm really excited about this panel. I really appreciate you all coming, especially 2 people that have flown in, especially for it. Makes me feel very special. But let's kick off with some introductions. If you'd just like to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get started.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm Chris Duffey from Adobe, head of what we call Gen Studio. So it's our end-to-end platform. It's an intelligence platform that allows for really unleashing, empowering creativity through generative AI.
Hi, everyone, and same. Thank you very much for having me, Mike. I'm Nico Sarti. I'm the Global VP for Creative Strategy at Condé Nast, and we work across all of the different titles that are part of the Condé Nast family to come up with concept and creative ideas, campaigns, and advertising models for our clients.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mia Sutton. I work for Under Armour. I am the global loyalty marketer for Under Armour. Been there about 2 years. We just launched our loyalty program, so if you are not a part of it, please go to underarmourrewards.com and join. Shameless plug. And then before that, previously, I spent 7 years helping to grow Hilton Honors, the brand, and working with their credit card program as well.
I'm Deeps. I'm the CMO of Degreed. We are a B2B learning and development platform that is looking to help companies upskill and reskill their employees for this age where talent is hard to find and hard to get. And so we're focused very much on that. Thank you for having us. I'm based in San Francisco in the Bay Area.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure having you. So it's brilliant because we've got 4 fantastic businesses, but 4 very different kind of skill bases. Let's kind of kick things off with, what are the challenges you guys are actually facing as marketeers and creatives right now? We're in a very different world. It seems to be transforming every day now, not every month or every year. It's incredibly hard for everybody to keep up. So what's it like from a personal experience in your particular position? We'll start with you.
Thank you. So essentially, I think there's 3 macro factors happening right now, and they're all converging at the same time. The first one is, obviously, customer expectations have greatly risen over the last number of years because of their expectation around digital experiences. The second is we continue to have business transformation needs, to your point, with all of the new technologies coming into place. And that third one is related with the technical disruption, greatly centered around generative AI. And I think when you put those 3 macro convergences together, you can start to see a clear pattern that the C-suite continues to have some headwinds coming at them in terms of how do I sustain profitable growth. And I think the universal agreement to address that is greater personalized experiences at scale. And so this is where generative AI comes into play, because now we have the capability to extract insights in near real time from CDP data that then can trigger in near real time content creation in near real time, that then triggers multi-mix modeling in near real time, and then optimization. And we can do that on a one-to-one, at scale, at speed, infinitely for greater experiences. And so at Adobe, we're working on an end-to-end platform that we call Gen Studio to allow enterprises, SMBs, individuals to really unleash the power of personalized experiences.
So nothing small then. Okay, and yourself?
I mean, one of the biggest challenges for us is whatever readers or consumers are doing instead of coming to our platforms. I mean, whatever they are doing on a daily basis that is not searching or reading or consuming our content is the main challenge. And actually, the second, I would say, is the fact that sometimes we think the competitors are maybe some of the other content creators, but they're not. Actually, to us, one of the biggest competition, I would say, is sometimes some of the social platforms and some of the places where clients are putting their dollars in instead of our channels. To us, that is one of the biggest challenge, mostly because it's tough to teach sometimes the clients the fact that the economy of attention is not just based on where you put your ads or where you put your money, but it's also in terms of how you evolve the story with let's say a Vanity Fair or a GQ team, instead of just thinking that the exercise of distributing content would be enough. So to us, that is definitely one of the biggest challenge, the education piece with some of the agencies and clients probably, and the fact that attention moves away from us, because naturally, and we talked about it before, like the marketing funnel has been completely shattered and it doesn't exist anymore. So it's a challenge because the companies still feel you need to validate the dollars that you spend in content, and it's really difficult.
100%. And also you've got to take into consideration that whole fact that there's, well, we talked about it in the early panel, being bombarded with content and ads thousands a day, so getting that cut through's an immediate challenge as well. Mia?
Yeah, I would say, just trading these very short-term metrics and KPIs for the long term, you're sacrificing the long-term health of the brand. And I've seen it time and time again where we all have our quarterly metrics and revenue and marketing needs to prove that they are attributing and contributing so much to the bottom line that we're losing the sight of the humanity within the marketing. And if you get that right, and if you get the connections right, and you build the community and the experiences the right way, and you are receptive to listening to your consumer, then the dollars will come. So, I think a lot of times we're really focused on, what we can say on paper, the quantity, and not necessarily the quality of what we're delivering to the consumer. So that's a challenge. And then I would say, the second challenge is making sure that we're providing value to consumers. The average American is a part of 17 different loyalty programs. It's getting harder and harder to cut through the noise, and it's harder for brands to really maintain and grow their membership base. So that's definitely an issue, and I think a solution to that is experiential marketing and connecting with consumers in real life and building experiences and communities.
And I think that's quite an interesting point, going back to what you said about AI, and because that's a lot of pressure for all of you, in the fact that you've got to keep every individual excited, you've got to deliver them personal experiences and content, and you've got to react to their ever-changing needs. So this is where there is going to be a positive thing about AI, because that's going to let us process that data a lot quicker, isn't it? PGA Tour, I saw a great talk by the president of PGA Tour, and he summed his challenges up of, he's got 18 events, as in 18 holes around a course, all simultaneously playing. He's trying to shoot all that content, and then he's got an audience in every field wanting to know what's happening on the other event. And so he's using AI now to predict what those people are going to want, so he can preload and get the content ready. And that just shows how we can use technology to be able to get to our customers quicker and stuff. So cool.
Yeah. I mean, Mia, great. Your first point was bang on when it comes to the focus on KPI. And I would actually say our biggest challenge as marketers right now is fighting the risk-averse businesses that most of us work inside of today, compared to even 10, 15 years ago. I look at the challenges that we face. It's very much of helping our own teams break the mold, think uniquely and differently, and not cookie cutter in a lot of the things that we know probably doesn't work as well, but we want to repeat because we know it potentially delivers the same thing that you delivered maybe 2 or 3 years ago. But the difference is, and Nico's great point around, when we think about the pressure and tension on the external side in terms of the market and audience, we also need to think about how that plays out from our team perspective, right? And how can we as leaders support our teams to be able to still break the mold, still do things differently, and reach these new audiences and spaces that we need to reach without having the continuous pressure from the business to stay the same. So I'd say it's sort of in-house is as much pressure as what we're facing in the market as well.
And what's really nice, and you said it in the last meeting, but I think this is what's quite interesting, where rather than kind of risk-taking, this is where the word innovation suddenly become forefront. Is so many brands and businesses are setting up innovation teams next to their creative. And you asked me earlier on what's my differentiation between creativity and innovation, and we've put the two together. That's why we call ourselves a creative innovation agency now, because I'm not sure you can have a creative process without innovation. But you've got to be really careful, and you can probably expand on this, that you've got to be careful at what point you enter into technology. Do you just want to expand on that for a sec?
Yeah, maybe a slightly different angle into your question. I think unlike previous technologies, Gen AI is not being allocated solely to the CTO, the CIO. It's so foundational to business reinvention that it is a contract across the C-suite. And so we're seeing that technology is playing a different role than it has in the past. And subsequently, to your point about innovation and creativity, that's changing the dynamic of how that's being viewed. So I think it's almost inversed in many ways, that we're leading with the technology in this case, because it is fundamentally going to reinvent businesses going forward, not just from a task perspective, not just from an employee upskilling perspective, but from a true business offering perspective. I think the conversation has evolved over the last 12 months or so from AI is great at efficiency, bottom line growth, and we're now converting it to it is great at top line growth, new business reinvention opportunities. So I think we're inverting the entire approach that we've thought of business and innovation and creativity going forward.
Okay, brilliant. Mia, I want to focus on you for a second, because loyalty is such an interesting subject matter that I think it's been part of the business anatomy for decades, but it hasn't. It needs an evolution, doesn't it? So what's changed with regards to customer needs and loyalty?
Yeah, loyalty is it's an interesting beast. If you know the history of loyalty programs, and back in the day, you would go to an ice cream shop and get something punched and stamped. It was almost an afterthought. I'm going to go get a coffee, and oh yeah, I have this card in my wallet, and you physically touched it. And now I think loyalty is really kind of leading the actions that people are taking. I am almost to a reward, so I am going to get in my car, go to a Starbucks, get this coffee so that I can get my free muffin or whatever the case may be. So I do think that there's been a shift in the landscape of loyalty. And then even from 10 years ago or 7 years ago, my time at Hilton, people were a part of loyalty programs. They started out, it started migrating to very much so, like hospitality and airlines. They're the big players in the loyalty space. Hilton Honors started in 1987, so that's like 36 years ago,
Wow.
right? And so, you know, it used to be a stamp, a badge of honor. It used to be, I am I have a financial acumen that's above the rest. It's exclusivity. It's, I know a little bit more than maybe my neighbor does, and I'm getting some added value there. And so it very much so went to an I'm savvy type of thing, to now with the shift in the economy and people, you know, groceries are sky high, there's inflation, it's very much so value driven and value based. And like I said, the average consumer is a part of 17 different loyalty programs. They're looking at it like, what is it going to do for me? What are you doing for me? What is the bottom dollar, you know, value that you're providing me? So there's been a shift of this like exclusivity club to more so, you know, what value are you providing, and transactional value particularly. So, you know, that's something that we're not gonna, I don't think that we're gonna get away from anytime soon. But I think that companies can thrive and differentiate themselves by providing an above transactional benefit, you know, some sort of exclusivity, early access, the ability to, you know, go play Topgolf with Curry and talk about family for 2 hours. Where are you going to get that, you know? So I think that they can position themselves really well by driving brand love and brand heat through experiences, building community. But it has shifted from this, you know, exclusivity paradigm to more so, you know, a value-driven, value-based paradigm. And there's so many people that are part of loyalty programs, you know, Mileage Plus, 1K members. Sometimes the line is longer than just the regular line. So brands are really struggling to continue to provide value to consumers to, like I said, maintain the engagement, drive ROI, and yeah, so it's definitely changed. And then how you combat that is segmentation, you know, really talking to audiences that show you love, you know, people that are in the top 10% of transactors, or they're repeat purchasers, or they were loyal before you even had a loyalty program. And so how do you give them the best offers out there instead of kind of blanketing it across the sea of consumers?
And Delta have done that quite well. They're here now, but they made that such an obvious move. I think it was only 6 months, a year ago, with the free Wi-Fi. It's like, what an obvious thing, rather than, sorry, I can swear it's Arvet, pissing everybody off and charging $10 for Wi-Fi on a flight that's only going to last 45 minutes. They've given it for free, but then they're now at events like this in Art Basel, and if you're on Sky Miles, you get access to all of that. So they're changing it quite well, which is good. So Nico, leaving you in the corner there, but I want to pay some attention to you now.
I mean, I would love to talk about loyalty programs, but for Condé Nast, loyalty programs is probably something that it refers back to the quality of the content that we deliver,
Yeah.
and the quality that we can help clients associate with. But we don't have that last end of the funnel kind of experience in the same way that probably in your sector you have to consider.
Right.
And for us, I mean, brick and mortar and real life experiences, it's at the core of what we do. But I think is how you translate. It's tough for us to translate it into an action that would be similar to a loyalty program.
Right. And, you know, even if you don't have a loyalty program, you do have your most loyal customers. You do have the people that have subscribed for years and years and years to, you know, whatever magazine or publication that may be. There is the loyalty program without having a loyalty program. You know, Under Armour Rewards, they don't have different levels of like status, but I mean, there are our creme de la creme customers, and then there are people that don't really interact with us as much, but they're members. So I think that there's pockets and ways to find how to interact with consumers on their own wavelength, even without that. Yeah.
That is super interesting because, for example, we always talk about the fact that in our meetings with clients, that we don't think about the audience specifically, but each of the title targets a mindset. Mm-hmm. And depending on the platform that we are using as part of the marketing or advertising campaign, then we can drill down into a specific audience. But when you think about Vogue, it has a very wide range of audiences, when you look at the actual demographic.
Yeah.
But then that is because if you look at the TikTok experience versus the Snapchat experience of Instagram or online, they are slightly different demographic within the same Vogue mindset, which is what we're trying to target. So for us, that is really important because it means that we can give a bit more of a high-level experience, and then we can start drilling into individual platform when it comes to, obviously, the media strategy.
And I think for my question to you, and I think you touched upon this earlier, but what have you seen to be the most disruptive things in marketing and advertising recently that you've kind of had to adapt to? I think you mentioned kind of social media, obviously, but do you want to expand on that?
Sure. I think in general, like the democratization of content experiences, in the sense of how everyone now can create their own content, and somehow you start having, for example, influencers that create content there. It's perceived by some of the consumers as high quality as what we do. And I think that to us has been a challenge. I would say not 10 years, but probably 5 years. And our response to it was actually to bring them into the fold. And we started actually co-creating with them on for some of the specific titles, for some of the specific brands. I think that has definitely been a way to react to some of these challenges. The other one is probably not very high level, but it's this idea of like potentially a cookieless experience. It could potentially be a challenge for some of the brands that advertise with us. But again, in terms of response, we looked a lot into our data, and content is the best advertising for us at the moment. Like real, deep, interesting, and valuable content.
Yeah, I mean, what's fascinating about the cookieless world that we're going into is we're going to have to use some of the things we used to use, right? Which is, go back to, focus groups, talking to users, real research, right? Like I think some of the basics will come back into the world of marketing, is my view. And in fact, I think you'll get the nuances out of it, right? Mia's point around segmentation, it goes to this sort of collective versus individual challenge that I think all of our brands face, right? Like, loyalty comes in the collective, but everyone wants to be individual or treated as individuals. How do you map the two together? And I think this combination of, quantitative data, which we might have less of, versus qualitative sort of understanding of the people that interact with our brands, especially those who are interacting more, that is where we need to almost even retool our teams to start thinking that way. Some companies and brands have gone way into the data-driven space, and I almost feel like now there's an opportunity to kind of pull back into the things that we're all different generations, but like the previous marketing leadership and the ways in which we should think about marketing originally, right? So it's just a really interesting time that we're dealing with right now.
And that's good, because I was going to ask you, Deeps, about how you feel like, the progression of marketing or what's really changed. And you were talking to Mark earlier about, we're innovating right now in the community space. But what you've just said there is really interesting, because, and it ties beautifully in what we're saying, staying human in the digital world, with this impact of cookies, and the actual human feedback now and pushback on some of the social media channels, because the advertising has been a bit aggressive and over the top. So it's almost like the humans are pushing back a bit. The marketeers are going to have to look past the data and find much more interesting ways to get directly to their audiences. And I think this is why we've been looking at the community side, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you just look at even the last decade, from monologue to dialogue, right? That's kind of where I think, I go in my teams, that I use that as a mantra. Like, I want to make sure that they think about this every single thing that we do, whether it's a campaign or whatever the activity is, experiences, events. It's monologue, dialogue, and that's the shift. And so it's a two-way conversation between, it's almost a three-way conversation, right? People want to have a conversation between themselves and with brands, versus the brand having the conversation with the audience. That has to be embedded in everything we do. Like, we just have to approach it that way, and moving forward, 100%. And then I think about the incredible technologies like Adobe. I don't want to plug Adobe here, but I will say I've got some friends at IBM who've been excited about the things you guys are doing at Adobe. And what makes that interesting is, how do you balance the leveraging of these incredibly powerful tools with some of the fundamentals of marketing and the things that we've been thinking we know to be true in so many different ways, and so that's the tension that we are all dealing with right now, that we have to just make sure we don't forget. Like, we might over-index in one way otherwise.
It's really interesting, and just to put kind of a personal experience, even just putting this event together is, I've been a marketeer now for 20 plus years, and kind of almost fell into that comfortable zone of like, build it and they will come, put the message out and they will come. And what's been really interesting, even just with this, because this is kind of like, the embodiment of what we believe as an agency. This is an event, but we're making content out of it and stuff like that. But maybe there's a change coming, and we've talked about this as well, between marketing and sales, because the relationship I've had with the other partner on this event, he's very much a sales guy, I'm a marketeer, and it reminded me how much we speak a different language. But I think we've learned off each other, and we've said this about the kind of community side, is it's like, if we're going to build these personal relationships, if we don't then figure out how to change the sales dynamic, it could ruin everything. Because the last thing you want, I went to CES, I was on a database, there is this one company now bombarding me with what they think is a personal email, and it's clear they haven't got a clue what I do. And the negativity that's grown around, like, that's had a worse impact. And maybe AI will help us do that. Maybe AI will help us define and filter out all of that. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you bring up a number of interesting points. The first one that came to mind was AI is really compressing the gap between different disciplines. Yeah. And so when I first got into the business, we didn't even have the analytics department. So now you can really embed the insight into the generation of the content earlier. You get the optimization from in-marketplace performance data back to the content to really enhance the value of the experience. I think the second one that you surfaced is there's an opportunity for strategy by experimentation. Yes. And I think this is what you were touching on, that now with Gen AI, you can compress the time to market, so you can scale more content faster, and you can do a lot of testing, not just on one-off content, but the entire customer journey, all of the touch points, and you can start to optimize that. We were chatting earlier, a new opportunity for, I think, marketers is quite often we'd always talk about, is it the medium or the message? And I think there's now a new overlay called like emotioneering, the ability to infuse emotion at different touch points based off of different personas that you are at a different moment in time. And I think that's where technology in a way is making us more human, because it's giving us more tools to tap into more human traits. So I think that as a creative, that's quite exciting.
I mean, that last point's... sorry, I'm excited by the last point. It's a great thought, right? That conversation. I mean, you can, same person who buys makeup on TikTok, an evening like last night, it could be a commercial, is a commercial director in a big company somewhere, and like, how do you, but has got a different mindset in that moment. It's almost a dream scenario for marketeers to be able to, work through these seamless experiences and interfaces and provide the right message at the right moment. So I think and lean into the emotional side of it. So it's a really
I like it as well, because if you think about it, everybody, the buzz of kind of the clever marketing or the creativity was kind of introducing fame, and that's kind of where all the influence and stuff. But if we're going to get personal, it has to deliver emotion, and that's kind of the Super Bowl really achieved that this year. Last year I was kind of like, fine, but this year there was a lot of good, proper, entertaining programming. So the ad space was, and that's their intention, isn't it, to make the ads as good as the game. And they seem to kind of really nail it. And then the halftime show and stuff like that, it created emotion. Yeah, I'm not even I shouldn't admit it now because I live in LA, but I'm not an NFL fan. But I loved it. So because it created an emotion out of it. Sorry.
One additional point, just you reminded me that wanted to touch on. I think your airline example with the Wi-Fi is indicative of where I hope the marketing business world is going in terms of we're changing the incentive. For so many years, it's been about time of engagement, and I think we're now starting to see the opportunity of value and value of the engagement versus just the quantity over and over. So just wanted to underscore
for us
that.
in terms of going back to the emotion thing, for us is at Condé Nast, both what we provide to advertisers, but also what we do as a company is to focus a lot on these cultural moments. They are absolutely pivotal for our commercial line, but also for our editorial team. And if you think about cultural moments, it means that you're not only tapping into the emotion that you can generate across our existing readers, but it's also, if you think about, it's Vanity Fair's Oscar party tonight, and it's something that you will experience even if you're not particularly connected with Vanity Fairs. There is also a tail of, or like a ripple effect that actually can spiral an emotion into some of the other readers and some of the other consumers that our readers connect with. And I think to us that is really important because it becomes essentially like this moment that we drop in time and that we allow advertisers to connect with, to create content with. And I mean, in the most simple form is like the getting ready with in the lead up to some of these big events. And it could be like, Lexus and GQ, for example, last year at the Men of the Year Award, and you have Lexus in a way connecting in a very authentic way for them and a very authentic way for us in real life. And it goes back a little bit to me also what you were saying about, I want to go back on this loyalty thing because I keep on thinking maybe we could have a moment in there.
I think you guys need to do a strategy session or something together.
This is the whole point of these. We're collaborating on ideas.
Exactly.
This is great.
But I think that would be really valuable in sense of like the real life experience we were talking about before. Those moments you can experience it, you need to hear about it, you are told about it, and you bump into it. And for us, those are the kind of 4 moments that we want to generate for our advertisers and clients.
So just expanding on that, my next question for all of you, but I want to go to you first, is you're all fantastic at your jobs, and so when it goes out, it just looks easy. It's like, wow, that was really clever, but some of these things take years and stuff like that. So what are the actual challenges you guys are faced with you've just, it's 2 years you've been at Condé Nast, and you're saying how big it is and how many different you must have come across a lot of challenges. So what are your how do you get over those things? How do you implement change?
3 different things, but I think, and the challenges, I'm not going to talk about my work challenges here specifically on camera, but I would say, I think that the challenges that we have in our roles, I would say, is trying to inspire the workforce enough for them to care about the bottom line. And me and Deep were talking about it before, and at the end of the day, you need to consider what is the part of their job that keeps the lights on, and what's the part of their jobs that actually is driven by their personal emotions, or their personal interest in something. I was talking to Deep about the fact that I try to apply the 70-30 rule, where I'm trying to find in all of the people I work with, what is that 30% or even 20% of hook or curiosity they have on something about their job. And I'm trying to put that at the front. That's what I told them, at least. And then the 70% to the 80%, it's the chore that it comes with the role. And then obviously talking to leadership and trying to reverse that. And to leadership, I'm saying that we're obviously looking into the 80 and 30, 70% of our job as the most important part. And the other part is just to keep the people a bit engaged. But you need to have that constant fight into the politics of the company, because we need to look at the bottom line, but at the same time, workforce wants to be inspired by the work they do. And in particular, the new generation, I think they really want to change something when they work on this project.
That's a really good. We just did a transformation project for Ericsson, and they're going through a massive business shift. They want to bring, they want to change the demographics of their, infrastructure and all of this. And the simple thing we did was we spotted the fact that it was very much decisions were made on a because it's a massive global company. And they were pushing it out and like not wondering why people weren't just embracing it and getting on. So we worked with them for 3 months just to flip the model and like empower those individual staff and make them like share. If you're doing something great regionally, share it with the rest of the world. And if it's good, and just flipping that and again making it personal to the staff made all the difference. And they were even surprised with how quickly it was picked up and carried on. It's like, well, you're empowering them. You're not telling, nobody likes to be told what to do. We all want to collaborate now. Mia, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, so many times we find what works as marketers and we want to keep picking up that same thing over and over and over again. I know that this is tried and true. I know that this is going to drive revenue. I know this is going to fill some sort of gap that we have. And we become reliant on it. And I was actually having a conversation with you earlier about, how do we get out of this historical rut, even, with AI and everything. They're picking up on our algorithms and they're serving up more of what we've done before in the past. And so really protecting that level of innovation. There's something about surprise and delight, where you can create these digital communities where you relate to people on a very niche experience or issue, and it's great, but before you know it, you can look around at all of the communities that you've created and you're surrounded by like-minded people, right? Yeah. And then you go out in the real world and there's a lot of diversity there. So really protecting innovation, protecting the diversity of thought is a huge challenge to marketers, and really protecting the ability to test and learn things and fail, and saying that, hey, this didn't work out but this does, or this worked for 5 years but I think we need to pivot. So that's the huge challenge, I think, for me, that I've seen throughout my career is trying to ride the wave instead of create a wave.
Yeah, and just adding to that, you're incredibly spot on. I really think the way you are trying to push your teams, to think different, operate differently, relies on, I think, a whole new skill set. Like, we're in the skills business, and talent and skills go hand in hand with thinking differently and willingness to think differently, right? Because these are mindset things that you can only repeat as many times as you like. There's only so many times you can repeat as a leader. Hey, let's experiment more. Let's use data more. Let's try and innovate more. Let's use more tools. But the truth is, it requires different skills and different talent inside your organization. And we also need to foster a lot of that. Like, we need to help our teams get there. So it may not be today, but it may be in 6 months. When we created the shift, I intentionally kept it very quiet inside the company, inside of, basically it was sort of like, kind of NDA stuff, right? Like, sign your life away here sort of stuff, right? Because I knew that if we launch this in 8 months from now, the noise that will start to generate and stop us from getting this out the door will in fact affect more of my team than myself, because they are not used to being sort of not towing the line, right? Like, you have to really sort of protect the team so they can be successful, to innovate, to experiment, to get things out the door. And that requires a different mindset, which then requires different skills to handle different parts of it. We were talking earlier as well. One point here on challenge to me is, I want to help educate my team to learn the skills of getting buy-in inside the company. Like, I think this is like a fundamental challenge inside the marketing organizations. A lot of marketing organizations and the people inside do not know how to talk to the rest of the business in this climate that we're dealing with right now. And unless we help the teams be better at that, it's going to be hard for us to be able to push the boundaries, try new things, etc. as well. So, a lot of this is about, great leadership and good management of teams and people as well.
That's a good point, because the thing for me, the word pivot means quite a lot to me, because when we set our agency up, we kind of wrote into our business plan that we wanted to have like a pivoting review every 2 to 3 years. And it was really interesting yesterday, because we had a day about gaming and the metaverse and Roblox, and some of the data that was coming out that, these gaming platforms are user-generated platforms, and they are communities, and the numbers are just off the charts. And what you can see now is there's a Kodak moment coming for social media and for gaming as well. So the president of EA Games has stood up and said, we are now going to pivot to user-generated gaming. And if you think about it, Fortnite is Call of Duty. So I think that's really kind of important. And then the other point, to your point, is I've got a talk tomorrow with a really cool tech guy, and he says the biggest problem he has is, as marketers and decision makers, a lot of us are in that older generation, and we haven't been brought up in this world. So, my son just naturally has adapted because he's grown up in it. So there is a fear at senior level. I got a really good relationship with a brand. I need to remember we're being recorded. And her problem, she's like, I'm talking to a brand manager all the time. She's loving what we're talking about. She says, but I just can't get it upstairs. I just can't get it up because they don't get it.
Yeah, and because patience doesn't exist outside of our organizations. I would say, honestly, inside most companies today, the word patience does not exist. I think that's the biggest thing. You're fighting against, we know that we play the long game. That's all we do. That's our jobs. Everyone else inside most companies play the short game. And so there's always this tension that we're dealing with.
I've got a couple more questions, but is there anybody in the audience that wants to ask something before I start to wrap up the next few questions? I've obviously done a great job and asked all the right questions. Great, cool. So you've all got unique sectors. We've had some great conversations. I'm certainly the good thing about this session, there's going to be lots of quotes like emotional marketing and personalization and stuff like that. But, for individually, what do you think are the unique opportunities coming up that are going to help brands really get over this next hurdle of moving from awareness to engagement?
Yeah, it's a great question. Great. What I've always valued and enjoyed about South by is it enables the ability to keep the finger on the pulse, but also to have conversations like this to introduce new perspectives on things. And I think what's different at this moment in time is it's not the speed of change, it's not the pervasiveness of the technology. It has surfaced a new contemplation that we haven't encountered before. What is innately human versus technology? And I think what we're starting to see is human critical thinking, human creativity is core to our being. And so I would offer, with that in mind, I love the quote, what I cannot build, I cannot understand. So I just encourage everyone, including myself, just get out and build and create and explore, innovate. And so I think that is how we're going to kind of solve and create this new path forward.
Brilliant. Nico?
I mean, for us, I would say it's probably keep on doing cool shit with cool people. And what I mean is translated in having interesting content that is co-created with interesting platforms with cool ambassadors and talent. And this is what we do best, more than anyone else. And we'll keep
Great
doing
job.
that.
Mia?
Yeah, I would say, there's this, with the rise in technology and all of these platforms, just getting back to the basics, keeping it simple, knowing what's intrinsically human. We all experience happiness, joy, sadness. We all want to be healthy, so it's really just getting back to the basics of humanity within the marketing. I think that's the biggest thing.
And
Yeah,
Deeps.
I mentioned it on the earlier panel, but I'll say it here. I think the three factors, and it'll be interesting. We'll talk after as well. To me, is just go back to extending on what you just said, Mia. I believe it's make sure you do something that's meaningful, make sure you're very relatable, and make sure it's authentic. To your point earlier, Nico, as well. Just those three. Just basically use that filter across everything you do inside your organizations, and it will create connections. It will create that human dialogue and conversation that we want to have.
Well, look, thank you very much. I've just got to say, when we were putting these 3 days together, the Saturday was going really well, the Monday was going really well, and the one kind of cherry on the cake was I wanted to be able to have a brand conversation. So just really appreciate the four of you kind of sticking your hand up and volunteering. This is a new thing for us. We're trying different things, and I think it's gone really well. So thank you very much.